Hello, this is Kirk, and this is the Frog House. In this video, we're going to talk about making the fence that you see behind me. I really liked April Wilkerson's design and used a lot of her ideas in mine. I'll leave a link to her fence build videos in the description below. I did most of the demo work before I decided to do this video, so all I have are some pictures of the fence before I took it down. It wasn't long after I did this that I wound up with appendicitis and had to have an emergency appendectomy. A couple weeks later, I was able to get back to working on the fence. Here's the fences I took off, pieces. As you can see, the wood's really rotted, especially down there towards the bottom. Top rail was almost non-existent. Carrying these suckers was a chore. Always need a good working area. I got a nice setup shade. Texas heat is really horrible. I'm fair skinned, so need to make sure we got everything shaded. Got some tunes, nice cold beverage. Got all my stuff all laid out. And then we'll go over here. I've already demoed the pieces I'm taking out. This is the neighbor's part of their fence. Haven't quite decided what to do with that pole and how I'm going to attach mine to it. There was a gate here. This post rotted out, so I'm going to use those brackets to attach a 4x4 post to there. The biggest challenge of the fence was getting this corner working. If you notice, if you watch the pole and the 4x4, you'll notice that the post isn't exactly plumb. It's created quite a bit of a challenge in trying to get that post upright. This is a completed part of the fence. This is the back side. I decided to use 2x4 across the top, more because of the expense of the 2x6. And at some points, like right here, the metal post is higher than the frame, the top rail, so I really didn't want to mess with that. Completed part of the front of the fence. I'm not quite certain what I'm going to do with the top of the 4x4. I do have to take off that one piece of trim in the front, so I made it a little too long. I'll worry about that a little bit later. Seeing how I work mostly solo, I make use of clamps to hold the wood in place so that I can drill in the screws. You also notice I put a miter here. Wasn't quite certain why I was going to do that, but then I realized that as I join up the top rails, pushing that miter in is going to help hold down that back piece and clamp it into place as I'm increasing that top rail. nothing ever really works the way it's supposed to. But this actually was one of the things that does seem to work. This is my spacer. It's just a picket that I ripped down to 3 inches, added a handle, which is the old handle from the old gate. Now my ground to top rail is about 2 inches too short, so I'm having to dig a little trench across the bottom. Just little things like this seem to always cause problems here. I'm going to show how I use this and why I put the top rail on first. So I've got the slats, pickets all the way down to the neighbor's fence. I'm starting to put up the trim. But if you see, since there's a bow in the fence itself, this piece isn't going to fit. So what I'm going to do is attempt to put a kerf on the back side of it to bend the board. See how that works. Alright, I made the kerf. Sorry I didn't actually show the picture of me doing that. I don't have a stand for my iPad. Did have to put a block along the fence to pull the piece out so that the saw can actually cut all the way through. Went about a little more than halfway. We'll see how that works. So the rail's up. The kerf worked. However, probably should have went a little deeper. It was a bit tougher to get in. Had to use a couple of nails to really get it tied up in there. But next time I'll use a deeper kerf. But I think it worked. That line goes away. You won't see a seam. All right, my next challenge. I got to take this 4x4 cedar post and put it in the square hole. Should be easy enough. But apparently 4 inches isn't exactly always 4 inches according to this whoever installed the original fence. So it looks like I'm going to have to chip away a little bit at that one side of it to get this to fit. And then of course I got to plumb it up, use the brackets. Let's see how this. Alright, got the post up, had to use the concrete hammer there to chip away at some of the pieces. As far as mounting the posts, I use the brackets, post brackets. I'll cut off the tabs and then use the baby sledge there to manipulate it into place. The fence is complete here. Looks pretty good. Got it all the way down to the end. Used another 4x4 at the very end to connect to the existing fence. The fence isn't exactly straight as this view shows you, but I did what I could and I think it turned out okay. Now for the gate. I'm going to start off by taking some measurements here, making sure that I have the size of the gate I want, make sure I have enough room in there. Yes, I still use an old folding ruler. They always seem to work well for me. Once I've made all the measurements, I took the wood inside and started making some cuts, doing some lengths, and then I'll do some dados here. I recently got a new saw and found out that the dado stack actually didn't work in the new saw. So I'm having to go back to my old Ryobi table saw, put the stack in. Couldn't find my throat plate, so I'm just kind of freewheeling it and making sure I don't cut off any fingers. Now that I have all the wood cut and all the dados in place, it's back out to the fence and start fitting them into the right spot. You got to make sure you get the right side up though. Learned this really quickly and made sure I identify which was my top piece here, so that I knew when I put it back to the side, I knew how to put it back together again. Once I had the pieces laid out the way I wanted it, went ahead and marked off where I was going to have to make a dado to fit the pieces in for the double lap joints. Unfortunately, I don't have videos of me making those dados. I used a chisel and a mallet. You'll see here that I have a spacer, there it is, that I use to identify where the gate would be, make sure I have enough gap. Well, my iPad overheated, so fast forward a few hours. I got the cross beams in. I've got the fence all mounted. The boards are all into place. So I'm ready to do some cutting now. Well, maybe not. I got this little cross beam I'm going to have to put in. It's going to add strength to it. Measured off the angles, but I still cut off a little bit too much, so I'm going to add a few shims in there. I'm using some of the Gorilla Glue that requires water, so I'm going to dip them into the water here, add some of the glue, and then I'll put it all into place, followed up with some screws. Okay, my iPad overheated again. I had made the cuts using a Sawzall. Got the fence out, but the fence is a little too long, so I'm going to use my skill saw here to trim off the bottom. Need to make out a little notch for the latch, so I pulled out an old rusted jigsaw. Turned out the jigsaw wasn't quite long enough, would have figured, so I'll bring back out my Sawzall. Yeah, this will do the trick. Now, prior to cutting the fence off, I did pre-mark the holes for my hinges. So all I really have to do now is just to tighten things back up, connect the door in, and put the bolts back into place. I've completed the gate. There's a few, did have to modify the post a little bit, move the post out so that it gets to the weight. Added a closing mechanism as required by city code. And I have the notch for my latch. Self-closing, and I would say that this project is complete. I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw here. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I'll try to do more of these videos as I get more projects complete. Thanks for watching.